Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the APRN committee meeting. I am Rebecca Sander, and I happen to be the vice chair of this committee. Melissa was not able to be with us today, so you haven't met me yet. So I am Rebecca. And I would kind of like to have everybody introduce yourself that are attending today, just for my reference, since we're all new faces. Go ahead, Kelly.
I'm Kelly Fritz, I'm nurse midwife.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. And the virtual attendees?
I'm Michaela Heiston. I'm a board member.
Hey, Michaela.
Hi, I'm Kim Arthur. I'm a clinical nurse specialist.
Hello, Kenyatta Brent, CRNA.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, so we do have quorum. So I'll proceed to call the meeting to order. Are there any additions or revisions to the agenda? Okay. Are there any announcements? None. Alrighty. We'll move on to the approval of minutes from December the 12th, 2023. Are you reading the minutes, Joe? The motions, I mean.
I can. Kelly's got some as well, but I can.
Oh, good, okay.
She probably doesn't hear. Kelly.
No, I can, yeah, no, I can, read the motions for you.
We have some. Like here's one that says minutes. Does somebody else want to, she wasn't here.
Yes, let me read it.
Go ahead, read, Joe.
Is there a committee member who would like to make the following motion? I move to approve the minutes from the December 12th, 2023 APRN committee meeting as written.
I can do that. Thank you. This is Michaela.
It's been moved and seconded.
Who was second?
Michaela. Michaela seconded.
No, that's.
No, Michaela.
No,
made it.
Kenyatta second.
Yeah,
Oh,
no problem.
got that in the wrong order. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say yes.
Yes,
Opposed, no. Motion carries. So we'll move on to the consent item agenda, and we do have an item under that. Right, Carol?
Yes, on page 8, you have the APRN programs, the out-of-state APRN programs that I looked at and reviewed from December 2023 through February 2024. And just as a reminder to everyone what this is and how this happens, we do not have the authority to approve out-of-state APRNs programs because our regulations really deal with Kansas. But we do look at if someone from out of state applies for licensure in Kansas, we need to look at their education and see if it's, you know, very similar to what we require. And so that's what I did. I looked at a person from Long Island University that was an MSN FMP, and then you'll see we require, 3 hours of advanced PAP, 3 hours of advanced health assessment, 3 hours of advanced farm, and then we require right now 500 clinical hours, and we do require accreditation. And so I go through any of those programs out of state that someone has applied for licensure and look at their transcript and the program, and that's what you see here. It's not anything that you have to approve or anything. As long as they meet our requirements, we can go ahead and license them, but we just report back to you all. So that's kind of what this is in case people don't know.
Any questions? Thank you, Carol. We'll move on to unfinished business. The prescription monitoring program committee report.
And actually, we don't have anyone on that right now. So we're still looking for someone who would be an APRN who prescribes that would have an interest in being on this committee. The committee is actually out of the Board of Pharmacy. But according to statute, we can have one representative who's an APRN, and they really prefer that APRN prescribes so that they have more, they're more familiar with prescriptions and the process and everything. So I don't know if anybody has any ideas how to get someone who's interested. We have one person who was kind of interested, but that was a CRNA who really doesn't prescribe per se. I mean, otherwise, if you don't have any ideas, I can reach out to like Capen or something like that and see if they want to put the word out and see if there's anybody who might be interested. I'm not exactly sure. I don't think they meet every month. I don't think it's quite that often. But the ones that we've had represent before have found it very interesting, very helpful. So I can just, if that's what you want me to do.
Try that strategy, your approach. Or if anybody knows, if anybody that might be interested, let Carol know.
I know of someone that could possibly be interested that is a CRNA as well as a family nurse practitioner in Kansas. I'm happy to provide you her information.
Yeah, if you just want to email it, and I'd be more than glad to follow up with her then.
Sure.
Thank
Who, I just want to verify, who am I emailing it to again?
To Carol Moreland, Carol, CAROL .Moreland, MORELAND @ks.gov.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Great. Okay, next is the update on the CNM1 regulations.
I mean, this would be me again. For those of you who are not really familiar with what this is, several years ago, there was a law passed that said that nurse midwives who are licensed through us could get a license through the Board of Healing Arts as an independent certified nurse midwife. And there's regulations that we were supposed to do in conjunction with the Board of Healing Arts. The Board of Healing Arts is actually the one that takes the lead on this because this independent license would be through the Board of Healing Arts. Although part of the requirement is they do have to be licensed as a nurse midwife through us. There was like, I think like 12 regulations, and the regulations would start at the Board of Healing Arts, and then once they got them how they thought they should be, then they would send them over to us, and our board would review them and decide whether they agreed with them, kind of approved them or something. So there's two still left out there these years later that there hasn't been an agreement on. And there's this certified nurse midwife independent advisory council. This is another agenda item that also worked with some representatives from the Board of Healing Arts to work on all of this. It hasn't always probably been the most productive working group, maybe would be the way to put it. I did reach out to my counterpart at the Board of Healing Arts to get an update on how all this is going, because I've not heard anything out of it for some time, and I've not heard back from that person. So I tried. I will continue to. I don't even think they have many licensed through there. That was a question that I had for her, is if she could provide the number of licenses that they have, because actually since our law has changed and they have full practice authority through us, they can do more through us than they can that one probably. So we're still working on that. I think. Yeah.
According to the Board of Healing Arts website, as of February 29th, there were 10 CNMIs
Okay.
in their statistics section on their
Good.
website. I could not look up names to see who was licensed because there was not a subcategory of CNMI. So I don't know who those 10 people are. The two of the four people who were on the advisory council, Jamie Harrington and Kara Busenhart, are willing to continue.
Oh, okay. Jamie and Kara,
Uh-huh. Tarina moved out of state,
right, and
and
I,
Kathy Gordon, I sent her a message and I said, are you interested in continuing? She said, not really.
yeah, she emailed me just, I think, yesterday or today and said that she did not want to. So we do need to come up with two more representatives that are licensed through us that would be willing to work on that. But again, I don't know actually how much they meet. That was part of the frustration, I think.
It was supposed to be 4 times a year, but I don't know that they've met since November of like 22 or something
Yeah,
like that.
I would agree with that. There doesn't seem to be much progress here, but so how do you suggest maybe we come up with other names? Is there a way that you know, or?
I really wanted to know who was licensed as it,
Okay,
because I thought that having some
let me see if I can find out.
representation that was actually licensed as under that category would be good. Jamie and Kara are or Jamie might still be, but I don't know that she's gonna continue that.
Yeah,
Kara's not.
Kara's not. Okay. Let me see if I can find out, who might be licensed. I think, okay.
Is there a reason why
What?
their names aren't up there?
Well, I
The
mean, you don't
category-
go under ours and say RN and then all of them, but you go in under our actual names.
I put in a couple of names, but below that, there was like, what category of license are you looking for? That drop down, I did not see a CNMI as an option.
Really? Well, let me see. I will, see if I can find out anything.
Because I had a couple people that I thought did it, and I was wondering if they maintained it.
Yeah, we bet there's probably not too much interest in maintaining, but you said there was 10.
That's what they said as of February 29th, is what they put down.
Oh,
That
okay, interesting. All right, thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to the graduate preceptor qualifications. That's KAR 60-17-104. And you do have that in your packet.
Want me to get a little context on
Is that in Jenny's?
Yeah, that is. This has kind of been on the agenda for a few months. There was some interest and a request that there be consideration. Right now, the only ones who can be preceptors or PRNs are an APRN or a physician. So there was some interest in possibly expanding that. And we actually have someone here to kind of share some ideas about this. So if it's okay, if she comes up now.
Fine.
You want to introduce yourself too?
I am Jenny Manry from Hawaii State University. This past year, we were accredited from CCNE and had the State Board of Nursing in on the same day. And following CCNE's guidelines as well as the NOC guidelines, we had put interdisciplinary preceptors into our curriculum, not recognizing that the appendix of the State Board of Nursing has a definition for what a preceptor is. We had looked at several other states and a dietitian, psychology, a social worker, wound care nurse, a variety of different things that in rural Kansas, you may be going to a town like Jetmore and you could be having to serve in all of these positions as a nurse practitioner. So we had built 75 hours into our program, and CCNE left telling us, "You're wonderful, this is excellent." And then we went to the meeting with Carol and Janelle, and I said, "We hate to tell you this, but do you know that you have misrepresented what a preceptor is? We brought this during practice act, it's not in there." And then, "It's not in there, but it's in the appendices." So with that said, we made a proposal to relook at what a preceptor is. The proposal we would ask would be that it would seem the State Board of Nursing, this group particularly, is considering increasing the number of hours to 750 clinical hours to be licensed in Kansas, and it would be our proposal that anything over 750 by the program would be discretionary, and that you could use interdisciplinary preceptors for that time frame. I know it seems that in reading the minutes and talking to different people, there's been a little bit of a hang up on should it be a PA and what would a PA do? And while we're not against the PA, I want to be very clear in the fact that we did not bring this proposal forward to focus on PAs. We brought it forward to make it an interdisciplinary preceptor that would influence the education of our students that are in rural Kansas. My colleagues from Eastern Kansas would definitely state that including PAs would broaden the horizon and increase access to clinical sites. But if you look through your packet, you can see that Fort Hays has over 500 clinical sites, 300 active preceptors at any given time, and we do not struggle for clinical sites. So we're not doing this to make it where our students can do clinicals. We're simply doing it, making the request so that it would broaden the scope of our students who are in very remote areas and often are acting as a live care nurse. And if we don't educate them while in school, they're not going to get that education. Are there any questions?
We do on page 11 and 12 and 13 in your packet. When this was started to be discussed a few months ago, it seems like, we were asked to kind of talk to the programs, and again, you'll see some questions. How many clinical sites do you have for APRN? How many of these would potentially have PAs to use? Would be able to use PAs? Would being able to use PAs as preceptors increase the number of potential clinical sites? And then what's the opinion? And then to go along with the next thing on the agenda, we looked at clinical hours. So that was, Janelle did all of this work, getting that data from the graduate programs in Kansas.
And it is, I'm sure you guys all understand, but looking at that chart, it is confusing when you're looking at it. So you want to look at the right-hand side, the direct care hours, and the fact that some people have put some of the indirect care hours intermingled into that. We did not, but I do see that there's a discrepancy with some.
Are there any more questions for Jenny? That chart was good. That's really a good information, the chart that they put together.
So it was very good.
It looks like it's very favorable possibility.
Well, thank you for your consideration.
So Carol, which regulation needs to be edited?
Okay, for the preceptor, you would be looking at, let me get up here, 60-17-104, administrator, faculty, and preceptor. Because if you go down, it talks about preceptor in number 4. And so we would need to do a little bit of work on that.
That's that one.
You know, if you wanted to classify who could be a preceptor, that would need a little bit of work. And then the next one, the clinical hours, is actually 60-17-105, and that is on page 14 in there. And the clinical hours is on the second page of that, small C2. Right now it's 500 hours, but you know, we would give a date. Well, that date is wrong because it would have to be moved clear back now, but it did say after January 1st, 2024, the clinical component would consist of at least 750 hours. But that date, of course, would have to be changed now. But the idea is we're trying to get these advanced practice regulations through because we I testified in front of the U.S. Department of Education. We had put in a renewal application for the Kansas Board of Nursing to be one agency approved and recognized by them to approve nursing programs. We're one of like 4 boards of nursing in the nation who does this. And it came up as deficiencies that we did not have policies. And that's because not all of our APRN education regulations have been revised to include all of that information. So there was a bunch of them put in the education one this morning. They approved for those to go to the board tomorrow. These are the 2 that are waiting out there. I have 12 months to get these through, and then I have to submit a follow-up report to the U.S. Department of Education. So, and it will take probably very close to 12 months to get these through. It's that slow going through the state approval process for the most part, so we're kind of on a timeline.
Feedback from the group, are you in favor, or are there issues or concerns about the proposed change in the hours or the proposed change in the description of the preceptor? And are they to include the word interdisciplinary in their description?
That's up to you guys. I mean, I think that's kind of what Jenny was saying is.
Well, I like the word she said, I forgot what they were already. Interdisciplinary what? To describe.
Interdisciplinary professions.
Okay,
Well, that would cover the gamut with it, using the word professions and not specific people.
I do think.
professions or
Opinion.
professionals?
Since I have an opinion.
Oh.
I do think that you could label master's level and above or something like that to where it gave a little bit of requirements. We would make sure that they had some type of certification. So if they went with a psychologist or social worker, we were asking for them to be certified. That didn't work in every area. So students would come and say, I want to go with this area. And it just seemed to leave out necessary potential people that were interdisciplinary. And just because we, like at Fort Hays' program, it will leave us 150 hours. In the past, we were doing 75. Not everybody goes with the same preceptor for that long. It might be just that they're going for 8 hours. So I don't think the certification is the right thing, but maybe saying like master's level or something. It would be whatever the board wants to do, but I do think that you would at least want to say bachelor's level or higher. I think you would want to put some type of caveat on there, so.
And do you say interdisciplinary professions or professionals?
I said professions, but you did say, yeah. And I will tell you, having looked through other state boards, there's a lot of them that do specifically specify social workers, psychologists, dietitians, and then there's others that don't specify. So it would be whether or not you want to make that specification. And that's where I wonder if you didn't make the specification, would you want to say something to a health science degree with a master's level or higher or something to that degree?
We might have to add that. That's a good suggestion. You know, isn't there still a statute requiring a certain percentage can be preceptored hours in a program? Does that still apply to the FNP?
Well, with the nurse practitioners, they would all, for the most part, be precepted. So, yeah. I do think that the caveat with this is the fact that at any point in time, while we choose to have 900 hours with the current regulations of 500 hours, we could get rid of 150. And if we had good rationale, I think you would approve it. So therefore, it seems that if you go up to 750, I was interested. I've always thought we had the highest number in Kansas, and looking at that list was very helpful to see there are some that have higher. But it seems that if you're a program that chooses to have more hours, it would give you the flexibility to put those students where you want them. So
I get what you're saying. That really makes sense. And it would help the rural areas tremendously, wouldn't it?
I'm thinking like a diabetic educator, you know, there's just so many things that you just don't have access to, so. This is not urgent, I will tell you, even though we submitted it a while back, we are not waiting on pins and needles. I would prefer that this board do what they feel like is right and not feel rushed with that, but I know that I understood from Carol, there's some type of urgency there, but know that it's not coming from us, so.
Right. I think it might be tomorrow because you have to move forward with these that they've been hanging, or haven't they been hanging for several years?
They have, yeah. I was in hopes the board would give me direction tomorrow to start through the process and decide how they wanted these to look like when I take them forward. But we'll see.
So what you have proposed, the draft that you have here, do you have in it anything about if it's more than 750 required clinical hours? Beyond that could be more discretionary?
No, I don't have any of that because
Not yet.
we never had any of that before. So I basically looked at what we had before, which started out as like, it looks like 260 practice hours. They just said, they wanted the terminology changed to practice hours instead of hours of clinical learning. And then after January of 2003, it went up to 500 hours. It's been at 500 hours. So then we would just say after a certain date, then the clinical component should consist of at least 750 direct patient care hours. And it doesn't say anything about the over 750. So if that's something you want added, you know.
Would that be an easier way to allow discretionary preceptors? Or
I think it's kind of whatever you guys want to write in here. I know. I just need to be able to explain it to the board tomorrow, because they won't see this in actual print tomorrow. So we'll just have to be able to talk through it with them.
Is every program in Kansas above the 750 minimum? That, currently it says 750 in here.
If you go to that one chart,
Well, which is the direct versus the clinical?
if you go to page 13 in your thing, it talks about clinical hours, but then it has direct clinical
So
hours.
which one do we look at? Direct.
You can look at direct, yeah.
So it looks like all the programs would have that. The way she describes that wiggle, flexibility, whatever word that is, that they all have that ability if they so choose, right? Is that
Of 107.50.
Right.
Yeah, that's
without having to go into more, and I hear what you're saying, it's something to add a little more specifics to that, to clarify that, but everybody's already above what's in here. Any other comments or thoughts in the group? It looks like from the schools that were surveyed, they're all pretty much in favor of changing from this interdisciplinary professions or professional, whatever, that sounds like that's a good, seems like that would cover other disciplines.
So you would want the preceptor to be like a
Yeah, that doctor, what they say, master,
health science degree at a master's level or above
right?
of interdisciplinary professionals. Is that
I think that's,
somewhat similar?
I think that's, sounds like she's
Okay.
Is everybody okay with the 750 hours then? And isn't that kind of in line with what's coming down the pike, maybe essentially down the road, some,
I think that's in line with what office.
not, yeah, I heard our conversation about something changing down the road, and everybody wants to have the programs ready to go with the changes. Do we need a
You need a motion.
You need to say that.
Yeah, because the need a motion for 60-17-104 is the preceptor information, and then I think it's 60-17-105 for the clinical hours.
Guys, I might add one more thing. I think, and I kind of went back and looked through the way it's written in other places, and I think you could add licensed professional, because I think all of those areas we're talking about have some type of license, and you may have mentioned that, but I just thought before you vote on wording, that might
Thank
be
you.
good to throw in, so.
Okay,
Well, you need to cover all your bases, because once we pass and go, you know, it's there, you know.
Yeah, I think
follow
you
what we
would
do.
collect that license, because we collected the license and the certification, I think you would want to at least collect the license.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Kim. Are we going to define the number of hours that have to be with a PA provider or APRN then?
So I would suggest that 750 be with an MDDO or APRN, and if they want to include PA in the interdisciplinary professions, then that's above the 750.
Okay, let me see if I get this right. So 750 hours would, the preceptor would have to be an MD, DO, or APRN. And then anything above 750 can be this health science degree at master's level or above, interdisciplinary licensed professional. Yep. Professions, okay.
Did that answer the question?
That's what I was wondering. Did that answer your question?
It did. When I read this packet, it sounded like there was an ask to make a recommendation that we allow PAs in certain areas where NPs and providers aren't as readily available. And now it feels like we're changing that to sticking with providers and APRNs up to the 750, and then changing it to interdisciplinary health professionals after that. When I first read it, it felt like we were saying that we really needed to include PAs in order to help our locations get the clinical hours that they need and help the rural areas get what they need.
So somebody want to read the motion?
I don't think the motion's,
Yeah, it's gonna have to be
it's
written.
gonna have to be written.
Oh, boy, Kelly.
You should have some blank ones just to the left there.
Yeah, over here, these half pages.
Are we ready for a motion? Or are we still discussing?
Everybody ready for a motion?
Or are these two separate motions?
We're just doing the preceptor one down, not the hours.
Which would be 60-17-104 is the preceptor one.
Your wording.
You need some help. You want me to do it, then you can read it? That might be a little easier since you're not familiar with it. This is just changing the language of that, and then the next one. would be- I think it's.
Carol, I did pull out Noel's wording. Do you mind if I read this sentence so you have that as well, how they phrase it? You can keep writing, I'll just read it to you real quick. It just says, the mix of oh, here we go. Programs may use a mix of clinicians to provide direct clinical teaching to students appropriate to the range of clinical experiences required to meet the program. The mix of preceptors may enhance the interprofessional experience for the students. Over the course, the student has a majority of clinical experience with preceptors from the same population of primary care or acute care. And then it just goes on to say interprofessional disciplines can be used. So I think that it's very similar to the language you're using, so.
Anyways. I think we probably need to put the. Print this out. Hold the one. Must be the. I don't know, see if that's right. I think it's right, but. Okay. I did, I've just been trying to.
No.
Go ahead
ahead,
with that
sorry.
one. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, I have two motions, one at a time.
Yeah, do the one about 60-17-104 first. Okay,
Yes. I move to revise KAR 60-17-104 to state preceptors can be MD, DO, APRN, or licensed health professions with a health science degree at master's level or above.
I'll second that. This is Michaela.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes,
if anyone's.
Opposed, nay, no. The motion carries. Okay, the other one was the 60-7-105 relating to the hours.
I move to revise KAR 60-17-105 to require 750 practice hours in curriculum. Number of hours over 750 can be precepted with a licensed interdisciplinary professional with the health science degree at master's level or higher. Practice of 750 or below must be precepted with MD, DO, or APRN.
Get it?
Okay. I think that does cover all the scenarios and situations and questions about practice. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Michaela.
Michaela. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
I forgot to count this much. Or not that big. Consent.
Consent.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to do that.
Do I? Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
we're gonna back up and read the motion that we failed to approve on those, that amended consent item agenda that she was talking about, the two schools where we approve their hours. So I move to approve the consensus item agenda, which included the APRN programs approved for licensure. There's a second? Thank you, Kelly. It's seconded. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Jenny, for your help. We appreciate that. We'll move on now to the new regulation review process that was talked about and introduced to the committee in December. And now the packet contains the regulation, right? The regulation, gotta use the right word.
Yeah.
The regulation that were listed here, and then we were to decide what would, if it could be revoked. And if not, then why do we need to keep it, right? So it's just, we're not revising anything. We're just determining with these, all these regulations that's listed on this list here. And the paperwork follows one at a time as we walk through. Some of these, are not going to do all of these today because there's a lot of them from this committee that apply to APRNs. But the drill part's going to be that we read the definition of the expanded role, which is KAR 60-11-101. You read that definition. Where is that on page?
That would be
24. And quite frankly, you probably need all of these regulations. I can't imagine any one of them being all omitted. Because you have to function with these regulations. So the first one is the role of the advanced practice nurses. So we need to read through these and identify, is the rule and reg necessary for implementation and administration of the state law? I would say yes. And does the rule and regulation service an identifiable public purpose in support of state law? Yes, with that particular role, we need that definition of the role and function. So this assignment isn't humongous. It's just a matter of reading them and making sure that you do need them. You do not want them revoked for any reason. And so we briefly described how the revocation would affect Kansas. So that's where you're giving care all the reason why you don't want it revoked. So we have to fill in the statement, the rationale or whatever on why we don't want this regulation revoked. So number 1 and number 2 are easy. It's yes and yes. And all we have to do today is number 3. Somebody can write down a description of how this revocation would affect Kansas, and then we'll move on and put a little dent in this list, because she needs to get these done. I don't know by when, but a little bit at a time, we'll get through them.
And just to tell you, I did just receive before the meeting feedback from CRNA about the ones under E. I presume I haven't looked at it and everything, so perhaps I could put that in your packet for June. And you would be able to see
good
that
idea.
feedback if you want to. That cuts the list down too.
Well, it does, that's very true. That's a good point. And because our meeting ends at 3, is there any items under new business that need to be addressed today?
No, we already talked about the council vacancies and maybe how to do some work on that. And you can leave the articles until next time. That's not something that has to be done if you want to start through a few of these regs.
Okay. Until our time runs out at 3 o'clock, and we know our agenda next June is gonna be the CRNA's
Right.
response. That for sure we can read and see what their description is on how it would affect
And
if
just,
revocation happens.
yeah, just FYI, you can't go all the way to 3 because we have another committee that follows this. It starts at 3.
Okay.
So just FYI.
2:55.
Yeah, there you go. That would work.
Okay, this first one affects the APRNs, and so somebody want to kind of briefly describe how revocation of the role of the definition of the expanded role, if we got rid of it, how would that affect Kansas?
FYI, this one was amended with the new law that passed. And I have used this several times when it talks about independent decisions
True.
versus working underneath. So I think it's just FYI.
The definition of the expanded roles, or we're talking about the independent?
This one was changed when they got full practice ability.
We have to have it. Can't we just put down we have to have it?
Yeah, you can. I mean, if you just can kind of tell us what would be the effect if it was revocated, in that the third one? Briefly describe how revocation would affect Kansas. That's probably the biggest information that we need for these. The rest, I think we can.
Delivery of practice, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm concerned that if the independent decision-making was removed or was gone,
Mhm.
that we would have a problem with other agencies trying to control the advanced practice nursing.
All right, that's a good point.
Okay, get that through.
I know we know why, but I guess she's explaining this to legislators who's probably not really familiar.
I explained it to a lot of people.
Do you need any more
No,
for that rationale?
I think that's fine for 60-11-101. Okay, next one is
102. Yep, I missed it. Where is one of them? The roles of advanced practice registered nurse. Where is one?
It's on page 24 in your packet. It just describes the 4 roles, what it does.
Oh, I guess I didn't know that's the fact. Oh, there it is. There it is. It was short. I didn't think it was much. Okay, so of course, number 1 and number 2 are yes and yes, and briefly describe why we need it.
This one right here is the one that talks about what are the 4 roles. It does go into then like practice, I don't know exactly how it's worded. It goes into each one then, and there's like functions of the nurse practitioner and stuff, but this is the only one that actually puts the 4 roles together in one.
And under the Board of Nursing,
Yes.
which is where it should be. If it's not under the Board of Nursing, who else might try to control it?
You're right. Okay, the 60-11-103 is the licensure and educational requirements that's required for this degree. So we need a statement on why we need this regulation.
This one was also one that was amended with the new law.
I mean, you can,
Yeah, because we included for licensure that they had to have the national certification and that they had to provide proof of malpractice. That was all in that bill. So,
which all protects the public safety of Kansas. And so, does that fly? If that's why it's there, the requirements are there listed.
Level of safety that's been proven through certification exam to protect the public. I think it's fairly clear.
That was helpful. Thank you. It just seems like it's so simple, but to write it down on paper and brief, like explain why we want it is hard for a minute.
it took
Oh, yeah, it is.
according to my little thing on my
Okay.
computer. Yeah, that's all we have. No.
Well, we did 3, 4.
Yeah, I will get those and they'll be in the consent agenda for next time. And I will put the feedback in there that you all can see that was given to me on the, there's enough of this. So that will get you some.
Yeah, for next meeting, now that everybody kind of knows ahead of time here in the packets, you can take a look at the ones coming up for next meeting and kind of jot down some thoughts about rationale that Carol could put down for livelihood, so that if she was questioned to explain some of these regulations, she could tell them why we need them, and they're not revoked. Very good. Okay, so I get this meeting will be adjourned then. Thank you, everybody.